Hey everyone, it is T-Maker from the Zierman Group, otherwise known as Tommy Tompkins, and I wanted to share a couple strategies that I use with Zierman's Cumulative Delta indicator. And when you first look at this indicator, it just looks like a bunch of squiggly lines, and for some this can be a little bit daunting, so I wanted to walk through this indicator and show just how to interpret this for very accurate entries and exits. So to start, let's go ahead and walk through the setup of this indicator. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the indicator from my screen and re-add it from scratch. So I'm going to search for the Cumulative Delta Expo. And after I add that to my chart, you'll notice that the lines are fairly smoothed out here, but what I like to do is I like to change the settings a little bit. So we'll go into the settings, and first of all, for the source, I like to change this to estimated, and for the signal line, I like to change this to 1. For most instruments, for crypto, I typically like to change that to somewhere around 10. But for indices and commodities, I typically like that to be 1. And we'll scroll down and I will enable the confirmation line. And all of the other settings I will go ahead and leave as defaults. Now, if I had to choose just one single indicator to trade off of, the Cumulative Delta indicator would definitely be it. And the reason why is because it shows me everything that I need to know to put on a good trade. It shows me price action, it shows me trend, it shows me momentum, and it shows me buying and selling pressure at any given time. Now, to better illustrate this, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the signal line just to make it a little bit less confusing to look at. So I'm going to uncheck the signal line box, and then this squiggly line here will go away. And now we're just left with the delta candles as well as the confirmation line. So the confirmation line is just a moving average of the delta candles. So if the delta candles are going up, the yellow confirmation line will also have a positive slope and be going up. And if the delta candles are going down, the confirmation line will have a negative slope and will also be going down. So in other words, if the delta candles are going up and the confirmation line is also going up, you are in an overall uptrend. And if the delta candles are going down and the confirmation line is also going down, you are in a downtrend. Another way to look at this is if the delta candles are staying near the top and the confirmation line is relatively flat, you are in more of a higher time frame uptrend. And likewise, if the delta candles are staying near the bottom and that confirmation line is relatively flat or staying flat, then you know that you're in a fairly strong or overall higher time frame downtrend. Now, if we scroll over to the left, you'll see that we were in a fairly strong uptrend. You can see the price is moving up, continuing to move up, and then all of a sudden, we start to get some really thick and fat delta candles to the downside, and that shows a very strong momentum to the downside and can indicate a change in trend. And as you can see, that was definitely a change in trend, and we transitioned to a downtrend at that point. So let's take a closer look at these delta candles and what they represent. So each delta candle can be either red or green, signifying either selling pressure or buying pressure. And the thicker that candle is, the more buying or selling pressure there is. So if we see really thick red delta candles, that means that the selling pressure is much greater than the buying pressure, and the momentum should continue to the downside, and vice versa. So now that you've learned how to identify whether you're in an uptrend or a downtrend and where the buying or selling pressure is and how much of it there is, we can use that to our advantage to find pullbacks in the trend or to find reversals in trend. So I'm going to go ahead and add that signal line back in. And the signal line represents the price action within the trend. So the signal line can be used to spot pullbacks. It can be used to spot divergences. It can be used to spot continuations. So for example, see we have the delta that has transitioned to a downtrend and is along the bottom of the indicator. And then we have the signal line that pulls up. So this indicates a pullback. So what we're looking for is a tick down in the direction of the trend. So the signal pulled up into the upper half, and as you can see, there's the price right there. It indicates the pullback, and the price continues to drop. And so we're still in a downtrend here. Here is our pullback, and you can see the tick down, and there it is right there, and price goes down. Now, you can see that the delta candles are starting to crawl and cross outside of the confirmation line. So that's your first signal that we might be transitioning to an uptrend. So when you see it cross on the bottom, you might not want to take that pullback there. In this case, you still would have had a little bit to the downside, but this is your heads up that you should start looking for longs. And so you can see that now that you're above, the price is continuing to move up as the signal moves up, and the delta is also moving up, and the confirmation line is also transitioning to a positive slope at this point. So once you start seeing that, then you can flip everything and start looking for long pullbacks. You can see that the signal line dropped to the bottom half, and it touched the bottom and ticked up right there. And here's the price. And so you could have went long here, put your stop underneath the low, and ended up getting a nice long right there. Now I'm going to show you one of my favorite setups with the cumulative delta, and it's one that I call the delta squeeze. Now the delta squeeze is typically used for trend reversal. So what I look for, and this might be kind of hard to see here, but what I look for is for the delta to come to the top or the bottom of the indicator and actually touch the top. And so after it touches, what I'm waiting for is the signal to close below and then tick down in the opposite direction. And I want it to do that without touching the delta. So usually if it touches the delta, there's usually still a little bit more upside. So in this case, you can see it closed below, and it still came up and it touched the delta right here. And so I probably would not have taken this one. However, you can see that as the signal pulled back and it came back up and then ticked down underneath the delta, I want there to be a little bit of space left in here. And here, I'll turn my drawing tool back on so you can see that. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for this tick down here with a little bit of space in between the signal line and the delta, and I want it to tick down in the other direction. And so if you look at the price right there, this is a beautiful entry for a short to the downside, and that's usually the start of a new downtrend. As you can see, there's a lot of downside to that move. Let me see if I can find a couple more of those for you. Okay, so here we were in a downtrend, and you could see we closed above, but it went back under the delta right here, and so we would not be interested in taking a long there. Here we closed above, again it went back under the delta, so we're not interested in taking a long yet. What we're looking for is we're looking for this delta to start having a positive slope, which it starts to have a positive slope right here, and we want that signal to tick up in the direction, which it does right there, ticks up in the direction of the reversing trend. And if you could see the price is right here. So your stop would go below here, and in this particular case it looks like you might have been stopped out right there. However, if you wanted the extra confirmation, you wait for the delta to cross the confirmation line, which it does right there. You wait for that signal to pull down to the delta and tick up right on the delta. So that entry would be right here. Stop goes right there, and you get a beautiful trade to the upside. This is also a good example of a continuation where you can see that the delta candles are rising, and you can see the signal comes down and it ticks up again right there above the delta candles. So this right here would be another great place for a continuation play if you wanted to jump in the middle of a trend. Now, usually those are a little bit more risky because you're getting in a little bit late, but it's definitely a valid play. Let's see if I can find another here. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, the delta comes in, it touches the bottom, signal closes above, comes down, and it doesn't touch the delta. There's a little bit of space in there, and it ticks up. So your entry is right here. And again, that ends up being a decent trade right there. Let's see if I can find another. Here we go. So delta comes down, we close above it, and here is your first tick up right there, right here, as the delta is rising. And that ends up being a beautiful trade. Here is another delta squeeze. You can see the delta candles come up. They touch the top right here, and we close underneath, and right there is our tick down. So your entry is right here, your stop goes above, and you get a nice move to the downside. Another setup that I want to show you is divergences. The cumulative delta is amazing at spotting divergences. So here I am on the Bitcoin USD chart, the daily chart. This is looks like November 21. If you were following this, November of 2021, you can see the signal right here. We have a tick down, makes a high, and over here we have a lower. So here's the high, here's a lower high on the signal, and we have a higher high on the price. And that is your first indication that there is going to be a drop. And if you traded this, you would have entered right here for a short. Stop would have went above the high, and that was a beautiful drop on Bitcoin. The reverse can also be used. Let's see if I could spot another one here. Okay, so we have a low, we have a lower low, and we have a higher low here and here on the signal. So that's your first indication that you are likely going to start turning around here. So you could wait for the signal to cross the delta and tick up, which would be right there. So your entry would be right here. Stop could go underneath, and again, beautiful daily trade on Bitcoin to the upside. Everything that I've shown you here can have alerts attached to it, and with alerts means that you can also automate it. So if you're using something like TommyBots for your automation or for your alerts, you can totally automate a lot of this using TommyBots. And recently, Zymerman added a lot more functionality as far as alerts go in the cumulative delta settings. So you can alert off of pretty much anything that you want now. It'd be nice if maybe he can add something for divergences. I don't think that exists in here now. So you'd have to spot those manually, but you can alert off of pretty much anything else. So hopefully this video was helpful, and let me know if you guys have any questions.